So let's talk about this before the meeting. One of the most important things is up front to actually think through what is the purpose of why we're doing this meeting? What is our goal? And so what we like to think about is there are really three different types of purpose, and each one has a different outcome. The first is to inform. And in a meeting that's designed to inform, our desired outcome is to really ensure that we understand and that we're helping people understand why perhaps a change is happening in the performance process. What is that? Because that was one of the key ones that came out is what is the goal of the performance process? What is it going to look like? And that might be an informed meeting, as often before the performance process starts, there might be a meeting that says, here's the timeline, here's when you do your self-review, here's when managers do the reviews, this is when meetings will happen, etc. That would be an informed type meeting. There's another type of meeting that happens, which is to discuss or to deliberate, and that goal is to gather input. So people, again, in the performance process mentioned that that was one of the more challenging topics. And so one where we might see this happen is in a calibration, a pre-calibration meeting where we're talking about, here are the ratings, what are we going to do, how do we think this should look? And that might be one where we discuss and we deliberate what we think that's going to look like. And then the final would be to decide. And that's where we have to choose between options. So in a decision like this, perhaps in one of the other topics we had on priorities was one that was big. Maybe in a decision making, we're deciding we can't do everything. What do we want to work on? These are really the three key types of meetings. And our goal is to think about what type of meeting am I having and how do I design a meeting around that? So when we're talking with others and our stakeholders, it's working together to figure out what's the goal of the meeting and what are we trying to get based on the outcome. One thing that I mentioned a minute ago is the word, one of the types of meeting is a deliberation meeting. It's to deliberate. And there's two topics. There's debate and deliberation. Debate is really around defending your point of view, whereas deliberation is really around a discussion so we can consider different reasons. Earlier when Thierry and Terry were talking, they were talking about the importance of having some conflict in a meeting. A lot of times when people get nervous about conflict, maybe a couple of your stomachs went, ugh, when I said that. What we have to realize is there is intellectual conflict and then there's relationship conflict. And what we're talking about here is intellectual conflict, where I care enough to hear your opinion. So we want to have the opportunity and the time to deliberate.